Hello, friends. So we examined the interface of Android Studio in a previous lesson. So in this lesson, we will install the Android virtual device, and this is going to be the emulator that will allow us to test the applications that we're going to make. So once you're ready, let's get started. First off, let's just delete the text view and the button components from the design area that we created in the previous lesson. And to do that, I'll select the two components from the componentry section and press delete, just right here on the keyboard. Okay, so my design area is now clear. So before starting the emulator setup, I would like to give you a little bit of extra information just about how to open and close a project, or how to close and open a project, or how to open a new project, how to open a previously created project, in fact. So in order to close an open project in Android Studio, just first click on the File tab in the upper left corner of the interface. So it's here right now, and then you just click on the Close Project option from the menu that opens. So if you follow these steps, you can close a project that's open in Android Studio. So after you close the project, you'll be able to see the start screen of Android Studio. Of course, if your goal is to create a new project, you should just select the Create New Project option from here. We learned how to create a new project in Android Studio in the setup lessons earlier. So for now, the section that you see on the left is the section where projects that you have created before are listed. If a project you've done before appears in this area, you can just open your project by clicking on the project. And if the project you want to open does not appear in this area, the second way you can do that is select Open an Existing Project option from here. So you can, of course, open any project on your computer. This is where you're going to need to know the file path where your project was saved, should you not use the default option. So we had to specify the folder where the files will be saved earlier when we created our first project. Now your projects are saved to the file path that you specified. If you happen to know where your project's been saved at this stage, you will just need to access the folder with your project. As you can see, I got access to the first project that we created, the first project file. Now you have to make sure that your project is selected here, so you don't want to scroll down the triangle over here to the left of your project. You just have to choose the project file, right? So then after making sure that the project file is selected, we can open up our project by pressing the OK button. Then when you open your project, Android Studio will show us a tip. Tip of the day. You can always tip your hat to the tip of the day. You can read this, but I usually check the don't show tips. But that's just me. I don't want this window to open every time. Cool, so now we have to wait for our project to be fully created. And that means that we shouldn't take any action before our project is completely created. So, cool. Here we go. So our project's been created successfully, and we can now start the setup of our Android virtual device. And before moving on to the emulator installation, I would like to talk just a little bit about one more thing. In order to use the emulator, the virtualization technology must be enabled on your computer. Now, most new computers have this technology enabled by default. It may not be enabled on some AMD processors, but you might as well find out, right? So just go ahead and look in your Task Manager. I'm just typing here Task Manager in the search bar, open up Task Manager, and I'll open the Performance tab. And yeah, there's all kinds of information here, but as you can see, it appears that there is virtualization enabled. So if virtualization technology doesn't happen to be enabled on your computer, you've got to do this by accessing the computer's BIOS menu. Shouldn't be too difficult. Opening the BIOS menu may differ, though, between different computers, depending on so many different things. So by examining the document, I will add after this lesson. Please remind me to do that now. You don't have to. I've already done it. You can have the information about opening your BIOS menu, all right? Or, you know what? As a result of a simple search on the internet, according to the brand and model of your computer, you can find out pretty quickly. But I don't want to prolong this any further. You just have to know, okay? Now, probably the majority of you have this feature enabled, still just need to point it out. You can also access detailed information about emulator installation by examining the link that I will also leave under this lesson. So, why don't we just get to the emulator installation? So in Android Studio, to create a virtual device or to start an existing virtual device, we'll need to click on the phone icon on the top right of the interface. Notice when I move the mouse cursor over the phone icon, AVD Manager appears. Now let's open the AVD Manager by pressing the phone icon, and when we click it, a window opens like this. And this shows us our virtual devices. Of course, since I've created 2 virtual devices before, these virtual devices appear here, but since you are creating a virtual device for the very first time, you might see a different screen, but don't worry about that. We'll have the same screens soon because we'll do everything step by step together. Now, at this point, I do want to show you how you can delete a virtual device that you've created before. So click on the gray triangle at the end line here where each virtual device is shown. So clicking it will open some views. If you select the duplicate option, you'll obviously create a copy of your existing virtual device. If you choose the delete option at the bottom, you will completely delete the virtual device that you've created. And if you choose the wipe data option, well, that means that you'll just delete all the data on your virtual device, on the virtual device only, of course. Sometimes we can use this option because as we develop projects and then we test them on virtual devices, the size of the virtual device on the disk increases, and then it can begin to slow down. So when you're faced with that kind of situation, you might just need to clean the virtual device. And by selecting the delete option here, I will delete the virtual devices that I created earlier. And together we will create our virtual device from the very beginning. All right. So I'll also just delete the other virtual device. All right. So now that we've deleted the virtual devices that I had left over, I created them earlier. We probably are looking at the same screens, right? So now we can create our own virtual device step by step. So first of all, I'll just click the Create Virtual Device. So it's this button here to create that virtual device. And when you click it, a window opens just like this. And this is the first step in creating a virtual device. All right? So the left of the window, you see here, there's a number of categories. And as you know, Android operating system is an operating system that can be used in televisions, phones, watches, tablets, cars. So in other words, choose a category according to what you're going to make your application for, which platform. Now, since we're going to be making applications that can run on the phone, I'm going to choose the phone option. And then later here we'll see phones built by Google. So you can choose any virtual device here. However, it might be better if you choose any of the devices with the Play Store application installed. And then as a result, we'll produce an application, and there may be some things that we have to do in the Play Store regarding the application. So I'll generally choose the devices that have the Play Store application installed. Just a heads up or an FYI. You can also see the size and the resolution of the virtual devices from here. So taking all of the different features into account, you can choose any virtual device. Typically, I'll prefer the Pixel-02 because both the Play Store application is installed and the resolution and size are ideal. So I indeed will choose the Pixel-02 virtual device. So after selecting Pixel-02, I press the next button at the bottom right, and then we'll click the next button, and the window with Android versions opens. Now, we can probably determine which version of Android that we want to have installed on our virtual device. The most current version is Android 11 or Android R. All right. I wonder, your screen probably has the word download next to all versions. But since I have already downloaded the Android R version before, you're not going to see the download statement. So don't worry about that. Usually you just select the most current version at this stage, but you can always download other versions as well. Now, if you do want to download any other version, of course, just click the download option here. And as soon as you click on it, the download will start automatically. And then again, the process might take some time. But since I have downloaded Android R before, I'm just going to cancel this. But I did show it to you, so there you go. When the download is complete, just click on the Finish button, and thus the version of Android you downloaded will be installed onto your virtual device. So now I'll just cancel the download by pressing the Cancel button, and after downloading Android 11, press Next again. So this step is the last step in the process of creating a virtual device. You can name your virtual device from this window that opens. However, usually we want virtual devices with the default name here. You can also specify the startup orientation of your virtual device from here. I'm going to choose Portrait, and generally that's what I use. And sure enough, we can now create our virtual device by clicking the Finish button. And as you see, our virtual device has been created. All right, so now let's test it out. Let's run our virtual device now. So to launch the virtual device, simply press the triangle that looks like the play icon here. And just by clicking on this triangle, it's going to launch our virtual device. This process can take a little time, my friends. So at this stage, you've got to be patient. Don't skip anything just to get ahead. And I'll just close this warning window. All right, so as you can see, the virtual device is just like a real phone. Of course, the installation process takes a long time, so I'll just speed up this part a little bit so that the duration of the lesson doesn't get too long. And I'll also close this window. All right, so now our virtual device is turned on. Now, first, let's log into the Play Store using our email address. So I'll press the Sign In button. You can write your email address in the field here. And after typing in your email address, we'll click the Next button. So we need to confirm the two-step verification. Next, we'll need to accept the Google Play terms of the agreement. And we must also accept the rules of Google services. And as you can see, we can access the application that we want to right from here, just as if we open the Play Store application on a real device. That's cool, huh? Now, of course, I explained these steps just for you to know. It's not necessarily so that you know about application development. It's just where you might want to go one day. We're not going to go there today. Also, I don't recommend installing and running any application from the Play Store to your virtual device, because the virtual device, well, kind of works a lot slower. So no need to slow down by installing more apps, right? All right, so let's take a brief look at the other features of our virtual device. You can turn your emulator device on and off using the power button here. You can also increase or decrease the volume of the device. You can take the phone in portrait or landscape mode. So here you can see the back, home page, and overview buttons. And then by pressing the More option here, we can access the other features. You can use maps. And we will use this section when we're going to make a weather forecast application in future lessons. And here again, you can see cellular, battery status, and from here you can access the photos on your virtual device. And again, there's an area where you can make virtual calls. Of course, we are going to hardly use these features here. I just want to show you for your own information. So maybe we can use the location section when we're going to make our weather application, and we'll just add a Google Maps complication. That'll be fun. But for now, let's close this window just by pressing the X in the upper right corner. Now from here, if you swipe up with your mouse, you can access the apps on the phone. Cool, huh? All right, my friends, the installation of the virtual device is now complete. The question becomes, how do we run a project that we made on a virtual device? That's a great question. And first of all, we can minimize our virtual device by clicking the minimize icon here. So in future lessons, we're going to make some applications, and we'll need to test these applications on our virtual device. So if you notice, here we see the virtual device that we've just completed the setup for. And if we had more than one virtual device, or if we connected a real Android device, we'd be able to see all of those devices here. On whichever device that you want to test your application, you could just choose a device from here. But for the moment, since we only have the one virtual device, I'll choose Pixel 2. Then press the green triangle icon here. This will run the application and test it. So if you want, let's add a button to the design area before we test the project. So I'll select the button component from the palette and drag it to the design area. Now you don't need to do this. I'm just going to show you how to test a project on a virtual device. So again, don't worry about it. We will learn these in detail in the coming lessons. So I'll just move the design area a little closer. So now let's change some properties of the button in the attribute section. And I'll just increase the width of the button. Make the width of the button maybe 300 dp. And now I'm changing these features quickly. So again, you'll learn them all later. Don't worry. So we'll make a background color red. So to change the property of a component, you've got to make sure that you select the relevant component from the design area or the component tree. We can change the text on the button. For example, we can write hello world, and after changing any property you want, just apply the change to the component by pressing the Enter key on the keyboard. So why don't we change the size of hello world again? Finally, I'll make a text style feature bold. Yeah, and then we'll determine the constraint values of our button. And in our constrained layout lesson, we'll explain again this process in detail. So let's just run it and test the application now. So I'm pressing the green triangle right here, and just below the interface, we can see the application has started to run. Now, the first time that you run your project, you may have to wait a bit. It might take some time. But as you can see, our application opens, and we can also see the button that we created in the design area. Now, of course, we haven't written any code for now. I just showed you very simply how to run your project on a virtual device. In our up-and-coming lessons, we're going to write code along with the designs that we do for our projects. So for now, we can terminate the project that we're running, and I'll show you how to terminate a project. You just press the red square icon here, and then, of course, pressing this will stop your running project. Just press the green triangle to run the project again. All right? So that is how to set up a virtual device, and it's also how to test your very own project on a virtual device. Cool. So we're going to take a short break here, and in the next lesson, we're going to continue to review Android Studio. I'll see you in the next one.